Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 4:44 p.m, which is also an angel number synchronicity, but we're not going to go on make wishes at every little number we come across, are we? But it's kind of astonishing because I think 444 represents moving forward in a positive new direction. I can't remember, I'll have to Google it later, but anyway, when you see triple number sequences, Google them because they too have a meaning if you're interested in that kind of metaphysical stuff. So I've been out for my lovely lunch, and yesterday I was indeed riding some kind of psychic metaphysical spiritual vibe when I said that there was something positive and uplifting going to happen either yesterday or today when we went out for lunch. And as the gods decreed, or the Holy One and all manifestations, however you want to frame that reference, the multiverse, the Ein Sof Or, the Shekhinah, if you're Christian, Jesus, if you're Hindu, all the Hindu gods, if you're Muslim, Allah, whoever's in charge of, the top wazoo upstairs, the big one that's got their finger on me. Well, when I say things that even I think are a bit strange in that moment in time, like when I said, I'm all dressed up, all sexy, as if something wonderful is going to happen, something wonderful did indeed happen. See? Kind of precognition or manifesting positivity just by thought forms alone. It felt more like precognition though, and so let me explain. So I went to visit Lynn today because we like to go to, once a week to the Alexandra Hills Hotel for lunch, which is our usual regular haunt. But we got there and they only had on offer baked ham and some kind of pork, and because of my Jewish programming and kind of brainwashing, because I did eat pork as a child when I was being raised as a little Lutheran girl, being abused in that Christian ethos, which was a vile beyond belief, which is why I hate it so much now. Yes, I admit I hate that. So anyway, as a consequence of converting to Judaism and not really eating pork ever again, I just can't bring myself to do it, If I'm really, really hungry, and I'm visiting someone and they don't recognise my Jewishness and they go to feed me pork, I will partake of it if there's nothing else to eat and not to insult my hosts. But actually, the religious dietary practices usually, take priority, and I usually just go, oh no thanks, I won't have it. So because we were buying lunch and it wasn't something that was like going to offend anyone and it wasn't really a fait accompli, we get there and the only things on offer was pork, baked ham, which I'm sure all the non-Jewish people would have really found delicious. I mean, baked ham can be quite yummy, to be honest. I remember from, eons ago. So it was complicated with my dietary habits, people of it. But anyway, the only thing on offer was jalapeno beef croquettes, and I quite like beef croquettes, but I was a bit worried about how hot and spicy the jalapeno was going to be. And I looked at Lynn and I said, I can't eat the ham or the pork, but I guess I could have the beef croquettes. But she looked at me and she said, no, I don't fancy any of that either. She was a bit surprised because I thought she would have still wanted lunch there. But anyway, so we decided to go to the Lighthouse restaurant at Cleveland Point. But on our way driving up the main road, I think it's Finucane Road, going up to Cleveland, we stopped in at Vinnie's, which is a shop that Lynn frequents because she drops a friend off that volunteers there. And I said, let's go and have a look at Vinnie's. She goes, oh, I was here yesterday. And I was like, oh, well, we don't have to go. She goes, no, we'll go. So she turned in, and parked the car. And honestly, money's very tight for me at the moment, so I was trying not to spend money, but I couldn't resist. I really couldn't resist. There was this, I ended up looking amongst the children's toys because I'm looking for things that the birds can play with. So I saw this little picnic basket, and it was only $6, which isn't a lot, and look, it's pretty pristine, still fairly new. And I said to Lynn, I'll buy that for your little granddaughter. She goes, no, my granddaughter wouldn't play with it. And I was like, but she likes to have picnics out the front garden with Auntie Tara. And she, yeah, but she won't want those toys. We've already got our own picnic things. So I looked at her because I'm actually trying to buy a gift for her granddaughter and do something kind of nice, you know. But she said, no, she won't play with it. Don't spend the money on it. And I looked at it and I hesitated and I looked at it again. I thought, $6. And honestly, my inner child said, you're buying it. So it had a little wooden plate. I'll probably find a child, you know, one of my neighbourhood kids or someone I'll gift it to one day. Little chopping board made out of plywood. I know it's stupid and frivolous and silly, but I used to love to buy toys for my children. I guess it's just a hangover from that. Literally like a hangover, like a bad headache, because, you know, my children are what? My eldest daughter's 40 in November. So little cups. I could actually use that for the birdie boys. I could stuff that with something and they could play with it somehow. Little pieces of toast times 2. Another little cup. Make believe. I don't think you could actually use it with actual liquids in it because it's got a screw in the bottom. But, you know, it's meant to be make believe anyway. And oh look, I just thought it was delightful. A little sugar bowl with a little lid for it. You can tell I'm German and Polish ancestry because I love little wooden trinkets and things. I buy things like that, or hand carved or handmade. Look, a little pepper. I mean, look, for $6 and all these little gizmos that came with it. A little imaginary bottle. Doesn't open up, like it's just it's just a facsimile of a bottle. A little spoon that if I wanted to, I could actually carve a bowl in it and turn it into a actual working spoon. But I won't, because it's just meant to be a toy. Another plate. What else have we got in here? Didn't even get to look at it properly in the shop. Oh, little coasters to sit the little glasses on. Anyway, the Mama T is as happy as a pig in mud. Oh, another little bowl. Let's see. It's got a lid too. Look at this. Little bowls, I guess, for putting imaginary. There's only the pepper, there isn't the salt, but you know, what do you expect? Second hand for $6. And a little slice. So there you have it. And honestly, I thought if nothing else, I could reuse the little picnic basket to keep the birdie boy spray bottles in. Because everything's for the birdie boys now, because you know, they're like grandchildren I don't have. So this one's got white vinegar, so I could sit their bottles in there, but then it doesn't quite close. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I could repurpose the little basket, is what I'm saying, if I wanted to. But honestly, I was so thrilled. And wait for it, that's not all I got. Mama T. Mama T was blessed by the multiverse today. She really was spoilt. And it sometimes runs like that, my luck. It'll run very hot and quick. And what did I say yesterday? How money is just a flow and it comes and goes. Well, I think that for $6 for a toy, you know, just I might not even give it away. I might just hold on to it, and if any kids come to visit, I can say, do you want to have a picnic with them, Mama too? Or usually I get the kids to call me Auntie Tanya, depending on how well they know me. But look, honestly, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with that little basket. It's just cute. But I got this as well. I'll show you. Hello. Hello. Oh, can I come in your cage? I just want to steal the new toy I got for you. So I'm a very good manifester. When I want something, put my mind to it, it comes to me invariably. So I've been worrying because I've been broke the first fortnight of every month. I'm going to be struggling financially because I pay out $300 in bloody Optus bills, and then another $150 in every third month my rego. So that puts me on the back foot juggling finances as hard as I can. But I also bought in that second-hand shop in Vinnie's. It's a kid's little, I don't know, it's a little Mr. Had shapes that they poked into it, but it's on little wheels, and it actually does roll. The wheels roll, you can roll it along, and $2. So I spent $8 in Vinnie's, which was a lot of money given that I wasn't intending to spend any money today, but what the fuckery, it was a bargain, and it was cute. And look, it's even got a little bumblebee on it, and little flowers, and anyway. So I remembered that the man in Pet City said to me last time, you've got to have a variety of toys, and like my boys haven't got a great variety of toys because the toys I bought for them are like one per each cage. So they got like, in the outside cage, Kermie's got that wonderful big chunky swing I bought him that he's only just started using, and a ladder, and plus his purchase, of course. And then in little Bo's cage, he's got this wooden toy thing that he sort of pecks at a little bit, but he's not really fussed. And he's got a big swing and then a little swing. Doesn't play with them. And then in this one, what have they got in this one? A swing and a thing to pull out and a ladder. And then in Kermie's cage, he's got that fabulous ladder, which was quite expensive, that little Bo's decided to chew apart. And this pulling out thing. You see this pulling out thing? And anyway, so the man in the pet shop, he's a lovely young man, his name's Josh, in Pet City, very sweet young man. He said to me, you don't need to spend a lot of money on birds' toys, but you've got to have a lot of variety. Oh, do I? I said. Well, I didn't sort of have that much with Charlie, because Charlie was always with me in the garden, but maybe that's why she was plucking out all the bloody feathers all the time, because she was bored. So there you go. I didn't understand that. So anyway, he says, you just get coloured paper, which I don't have any coloured paper in the house, but I'll buy some. So like tissue paper, he said. So my fruit box arrived today with this brown paper. So I put it through the shredder and I shredded it. And then I went through my other stash of things that come for packaging, and I shredded some tissue paper. And I've just rolled it up and poked some out through the holes, and then I've put bits of raisins and sunflower seeds for them to play with it tomorrow. That's their new toy. $2, $2, and the paper was free because it's come with packaging, and I don't have to do anything to renovate that box. And look, little Bo will chew up the wood, so the only thing I worry is about the paintwork, but I don't think he'll chew that really that much. But anyway, I think it should be okay. But they've got things they can jump in there and poke about in there, and they can get their raisins and their sunflowers, and somewhere in there through a piece of coconut, and it's $2. So new toy, gives them something else for stimulation to do. And Bo's already had a look at it and went, ooh, well, that looks interesting, Mama too. So, what's happened here? All your papers are flying everywhere because of because you are, for $2, then you can play. Go play. Go play. Right, so I wanted to tell you that. So that was the first lovely thing that happened, getting those lovely toys, one a bird toy and one potentially a bird toy, or I'll keep it for children when they visit. I very rarely get children visiting. My nephew, when they migrated here a few years ago, was bringing his little kids, but then there was some fractiousness about my dog, and that was the end of that beautiful friendship. So in the fuck it bucket it went, and it's a bit sad, but that's life, isn't it? So, not everyone gets along with the mama T and her pets. Shit happens. But anyway, I think I'll hold on to those. I gave a lot of my children's toys away that I still had after 30 odd years. But every now and then I buy something made out of wood because it's cute and lasts a long time, and if it gets, if it gets mouldy or whatever, you can just throw it in the fire. And I don't like having plastic toys. I don't like having too much plastic around the house. I'm looking at this little plastic dish and it even irritates me. So I buy a lot of like bamboo containers usually, or things in glass. I just don't want plastic. Really don't want plastic in my house. I don't like it. But I mean, out of necessity, I've got a lot of these for storing beads and jewellery. Yesterday, late afternoon actually, I got a buzz of energy from somewhere. Remember I said I wasn't going to do anything yesterday because I was completely knackered? Well, I cut some opals. They've been ground back with a coarse bit, and I've got to do medium and fine. I don't want to grind too much because they're so tiny, there's not bloody much left. It's a pity I lost the first one because it had good colour, whereas these don't have a lot of colour. I think that had colour on the side. Can't quite pick it up, can you? Well, anyway, they're only little tiny pieces, and they weren't expensive. They're not all that valuable, and by the time I put a lot of work into it, I don't know how they'll come up. They might come up nice, or they might not. Here's a rough one that still needs shaping and grinding back the rough edges and grinding off the bit of potch, and potch is the that whitish murky bit that's not opal but just the opal's attached to. So there was that. So anyway, let me go back to my story, what happened today. I'm really impressed with myself getting more psychic, by the way, because sometimes I even say to you, my YouTube audience, subscribers, likers and commenters, who come to my channel and watch me rave on and wonder, what's she on about? Why is she ranting about dead potentiate love interests, and what's she on about now? But there's always something new each day, isn't there? I mean, you can't accuse me of being boring, people of Earth. So yesterday in my video I said that that I was intuiting that something positive and uplifting was going to happen, and that I'd even got dressed up for the occasion, which was odd even by my standards because I wasn't going anywhere yesterday. And then I said it's probably going to happen tomorrow, because I sometimes intuit things and it can be within days or weeks of something happening, and I'm invariably correct, although often I forget what it was I intuited, and when it happens and comes true I'm like, oh, I have deja vu, but I've actually forgotten that I precognitively in advance picked up on that energy. So I'm a bit happy about that today, because I'll tell you what happened. So we finished with being at Vinnie's, and the lady who works there, her name is Peta, P-E-T-A, and she's very English, and she's a lovely woman. She's outgoing and extroverted and friendly and garrulous, and just a delight. Anyway, I've met her before, but we were chatting away and I'm looking into her eyes. As I do, I have a habit of, when I talk to people, I'm staring into their eyes, which some people can find a bit disconcerting at times, a bit intimidating, but it's not meant that way. It's just, I guess it's a very Germanic thing. I probably got it from my mother, staring into someone's soul through their windows of their soul through their eyes. Often makes a lot of enemies because people wonder why I'm looking into them, and it's an old habit that I haven't quite broken, and I don't see any real harm in it. And if people are threatened by me eye gazing them, then that says a lot more about them than it does about me. Am I right? But anyway, I'm chatting to this lovely lady, and one of her volunteer workers who was also very bubbly and outgoing, really lovely woman. And I'm conscious that we're all around the same age group, late 50s. I'm 60, but we're all around the 50s, 60s mark. Anyway, I'm chatting to Peter and I said to her, this is my shaman abilities coming out that can happen quite spontaneously and without, it just arises in my spirit to say things sometimes. And it can seem also a bit intimidating and a bit odd. But I've learnt now to just go with the flow. If something has to be said or mentioned or brought out into the consciousness, I'll say it. And sometimes, again, it can make enemies or cost me in some weird way. But, I try to say things kindly and respectfully. But anyway, she's such a lovely lady, and I've looked at her before, and I thought I'm going to say it. So we're chatting away, and I'm looking into her eyes, and I'm actually looking into, the irises of her eyes, and she has green eyes, but the sun was like shining through the shop window and shining into her eyes, and they were literally reflecting different shades of the brightest, most radiant, iridescent green, almost like a butterfly. It's how beautiful her eyes are. And I thought, I'm going to tell her. I said, Peter, I want to tell you this. It's going to sound a bit weird, but I said, you seem an extroverted and outgoing and a very positive and uplifted and lady, so you won't take offence, I said. And I make it a habit, if I see something really, really beautiful or unique or worth mentioning on another person, I like to compliment them. I said, not because they need the confidence boost or, that in any way I think that they're defective or they need a kick up, a boost up. But I said, and so I'm not suggesting that, but I said, I just want to tell you, I said, you have the most beautiful green eyes I have ever seen. She went, oh, really? Thank you. And I went, no, really. I said, I'm drowning in your eyes. And she was like, well, thank you so much, Tanya. She said, and you're right. She said, it doesn't hurt to compliment other people and, tell them something that you find, lovely or beautiful about them. So she accepted my compliment with grace, which I was very happy about, because you'd be amazed at how many times I've said to someone, oh, haven't you got beautiful hair, or how beautifully dressed, and people go, oh, and they act like you've thrown boiling water at them or maggots on a griller, they'll kind of recoil like just some awful person, and you've actually done something lovely, presented them of a gift of an acknowledgement that you've seen them and admired something about them. And so anyway, I said to her, I make it a practice to tell people when I think that, but I said some people, can be a bit funny about you. No, I'm very happy you told me that, it's very lovely and thank you so much. She was gracious and a lovely woman. And the other woman that was working for her or with her had a lovely frock, and she was talking about how her daughter likes a particular shade of red. I said, "Oh, really? I love red too." She said, "Yes, she likes like that bright fire engine, almost orange red." And then Peter, who's English, said, "Oh, like the post boxes in England." And I looked at her and I went, "Well, you're definitely British because that's exactly the colour." And she laughed too, Anyway, I admired her. I didn't get the other lady's name, but I admired her lovely dress. She said, "Yes, I had to bring the dress back I bought for my daughter." She said it was a brilliant blood red, but it wasn't orange enough, and my daughter only likes the orangey reds. I said, "Oh, what a shame, because, red, I like that bright blood red as well." It's actually a kind of a darker red, isn't it, blood red? But anyway, I said she had a lovely frock on. So I left there feeling, that I'd got those two really cool little bargains, one for the birdies and one for Miss Five, my inner child, you understand. I'm going to have a picnic with that bugger. Silly as a wheel it might look, I don't care. Who's going to know? It's just me in my back garden being a mad old chook. Should have been a grandmother, but the fate's decreed against that, and it's a fucking evil and cruel fate, me being denied grandchildren, because, to be honest, it's the only reason I had children, even as a very young woman. I used to tell people I've had children young so that they'll grow up together, and I'll still be young when they have children, and I'll be a young grandmother, and I'll get to play with them, and I'll have energy for them, and it'll be wonderful. And of course, the backbone to that was my mother had me when she was 38 years old, and I'd go to school and the kids would go, "Oh, your grandma's picking you up, oh, your grandma's taking you home," and it'd be really horrible about the fact that my mother was a much older mother. So I think that probably was a little bit, underlying that I wanted to have my babies young and get that kind of out of the way and raise them, and then be, looking forward to being a grandmother and getting old and being surrounded by my grandchildren and my daughters and their partners or husbands, and none of that manifested, people of earth. Now even my daughters have left my life, so I want to cry when I think about it, but we won't cry because things happen for a reason, and that's my fate. That's my destiny, and there's nothing I can do about it except buy stupid little toys for myself and hope that one day, my friends will bring their little kiddies around and they'll play with me nicely and have something nice for them to, entertain themselves while I sit with their parents having a nice cup of tea. Well, you know what? That hasn't happened for over a year either. It's like neighbourhood kids have all outgrown me, and parents are busy all the time, and it's kind of dreadful and sad when you think about it, but what's the point in being sad? We'll let it go. So anyway, so where was I going with that? Right, so the next stop from going to Vinnie's was Lynn, and I then Lynn was driving. Lynn drove me to the Lighthouse restaurant at Cleveland Point, which is a beautiful place to have lunch. And the first thing I did, because it's right on the sea, literally the ocean, that splashes waves up over the alongside the restaurant, and it's a glorious place. First thing I did walking was I opened my mouth wide and inhaled the beautiful sea air and the sea breeze and the salt, and because I'm actually, I come from seagoing people. I'm not meant to be stuck in the fucking hills of Holland Park for 22 and a half years, you understand? But, I can't afford a house by the sea. Always dreamed of moving to Byron Bay one day and living there, but it's only for the very, very wealthy, my darlings. So, and I was robbed of so much that the opportunity for that had to happen is zero now. But anyway, I can take delight in the sea when I visit it. So I was like, And people were looking at me like, why is she opening her mouth wide? And I was just drawing it all in and loving it. And so I went to order fish and chips, and Lynn wanted a ham and toasted sandwich, but then for some, I can't remember why she ordered soup, but anyway. So I went and got the fish and chips, and then I went to join Lynn. Lynn she bought me the fish and chips, and she bought me the coffee. But she's waiting, at the coffee shop for the coffees and her soup. And anyway, I look around the restaurant, and there was a whole table of women, all in Lynn and my age group, between 60s to 70, all around that age group. And there were 3 women sort of leaning forward like mischievous little schoolgirls, almost like Pixie. They're like looking mischievous, and they were looking over at us, and I'm standing there kind of going, why are these women looking at me? And I thought, maybe they saw me opening my mouth and gasping in salt air, and probably thought I looked silly as a wheel, because probably did look silly as a wheel. But anyway, it made sense to me as an asthmatic. So and I sort of noticed them looking at us, and I'm like, but I don't know any of you women. But then I turned and I looked at Lynn, and then I turned back, and they're like, so I turned to Lynn and I said, these ladies over there at that table, I think they know you, Lynn. And she turns and looks, and she did know them. They were all people that had been inviting her for months to come and join their coffee meeting group. They meet there once a fortnight on a Wednesday from about 9:30 a.m, which I might start going along to, because they were lovely women. There was about, let me just look how many were there. Some left while I was sitting there. There was about 8 or 10 of them. And so anyway, and they all knew Lynn, and they said, Lynn, we've been trying to get you to come and have coffee morning with us for months. And Lynn's like, I know. Anyway, and I went into full on, garrulous, extroverted Tanya mode, and started raving on with all my inappropriate and weird, witchy, shamanic stories, and they're just kind of looking at it, taking it all. I was like, oh, Tanya, you need to shut up, Tanya, I said to myself. But it was too late. I was on fire. Off I went. And they were so lovely to me. They all admired my dress and my jewellery, and, they were so kind. And they said, oh, well, from now on, we meet here every Wednesday morning and come along. Well, I can't come, but it's every second Wednesday from today, isn't it? I'm actually going to mark it in the calendar. I might actually go along again. I'll take Lynn with me. They know Lynn better than they know me, because some of them are old neighbours of her and everything. So it's good for us to have a bit more of a social outlet rather than just her and I going puddling around together, So one of the ladies invited Lynn to join them at their boot scooting line dancing. I don't like line dancing. I do wild, crazy, freestyling, moshing to hard rock songs. I don't like being regimented in any kind of line. There is a history, people, for that reason too. But Lynn loves doing that kind of Western dancing and all kinds of dancing, but she says, oh, I've never done line dancing, come along. And they said you should join the Donald Simpson, which is an over 50s thing. They have crafts and all sorts of things. I said, well, then why don't we go along? I said, I won't go to line dancing, but there might be some craft we could go along to and participate in. And her anxiety is so extreme. She says, I can't because of the parking. So anyway, she'll probably move past that if she really wants to, but you've got to want to. But so anyway, we sat and had lunch, Lynn and I, with this group of lovely women, and we regaled each other with stories, and it was such a positive and uplifting thing, exactly as I said was going to happen yesterday. And as I was sitting there, I even told the woman, I said, I had this intuition yesterday, and I thought I was a bit mad, and here it is, happening right before my eyes. I said, it was so lovely to meet you all, and you're all lovely women, and you're all beautiful, which they all were, and it was just delightful. So I was really kind of thrilled about that. And then, as fate would have it, we went driving past. We actually drove past the Donald, I think it's called Don Simpson over 50s. And I said, "Look, Glenn, there's the car park. Oh, look, Glenn, there's a couple of parks there. You could park there right now if you wanted to." "Oh, there's never any parks when I want to come here." I went, "Lynn, look, there's the parks. I can see them. There's quite a few parks." She said, "Oh, it's my anxiety," which is, I get it because I have terrible, believe it or not, I have terrible phobias and anxieties that I have to push through. Even going out every Friday night, as I used to do regularly, every Friday night was kind of like performance anxiety, even though I'm not one of the actual performers. But, it's like being in amongst a crowded club with lots of other people, and some people actually impinging on my space. Used to be very, very hard. Used to be, still is when I go out. Very, very hard on my nervous system because I live alone, and I'm alone most of the time. And then Friday nights, while dancing, and I'm doing my mosh and gesticulating with my fan, and it is kind of a performance artistry. And, it can be very stressful when there's people being obnoxious and impinging on my little bit of tiny space. And, it can be a bit triggering at times, and I have to manage it because it's a public space, and I want to be out dancing with other people and being joyous and enjoy the music, but it can have just driving to the car park, and even the walk down, it's kind of almost ritualistic, moving into another headspace so that I can actually cope with being out in a crowd of often drunk people, sometimes nasty, belligerent people. It can be, it's a huge feckin' effort. Um, and, well, I've been doing it for 12 years, haven't I? So, I make the effort because I have a human right to be out enjoying the dance and a bit of a social life and have a few drinks and do my wild mosh too. Like, fuck it. Why should anyone interfere with that? People of Earth. Anyway, we spoke about this yesterday, so we won't be banging on about that again. But anyway, so, anxiety and generalised anxiety and trauma issues and too much social isolation and too much othering and bullying that I've endured in my lifetime can make you feel quite disabled. So, Lynn and I, we go out, we love each other. She's a fucking sister to me, and we just have to kind of egg each other on sometimes. But I'm glad that we had that lovely lunch and met that whole group of really lovely women, because you know what? If nothing else, it did me the power of good, and it also showed me that my mad little intuitions that I call mad aren't mad at all, because I was bang on accurate. I didn't know that it was going to be a whole group of women that I was going to meet, but I knew that something uplifting and positive was going to happen. So I'm pleased that I'm reasonably tuned into the multiverse, except I don't get enough details to give readings or, um, predict actual events exactly, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm getting there slowly. Just going to turn on the lights. I'm just going to slide sideways, moving over, and out. Right. Still got to finish off these earrings. They're still sitting there hanging up there. It'll happen. I've got to be rigid about finishing of projects because being in Aries, we have a habit, us Aries signs, of picking up projects and then not completing things. Well, you little birdie boys are very quiet, and guess what? You haven't played with your new toy. Well, disappointing. I guess there's always tomorrow. You're my handsome boys, aren't you? I love you. You shall love you. I love the little Cammy. I love you, little Cammy. And we love the little bone. And who loves a mama tea? Only Auntie Lynn and Uncle Jared. And, a few other people out in the wider world. Right, chapter 23 of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin, and we're 41 minutes in before we start the story. Maybe we should split it up and have a separate video. It's only a couple of short ones, so we'll tack it onto this. We'll just do a couple of short ones. Right. Are you ready, people of Earth? My goodness. Mummy buying. Mama T buying toy picnic things, and well, it's a symbol of freedom, joy and delight, and being outside with beloved ones, isn't it? Right. It has been told that Tuor, the brother of Hurin, was slain in the battle of Unnumbered Tears, and in the winter of that year, Rian, his wife, bore a child in the wilds of Mithrin, and he was named Tuor, and was taken to foster by Amael of the Grey Elves, who yet lived in those hills. Now when Tuor was 16 years old, the elves were minded to leave the caves of Androth where they dwelt, and to make their way secretly to the havens of Sirion in the distant south. But they were assailed by orcs and easterlings before they made good their escape. And Tuor was taken captive and enslaved by Lorgan, chief of the easterlings of Hiflam. For 3 years he endured that thraldom, but at the end of that time he escaped, and returning to the caves of Androth, he dwelt there alone, and did such great hurt to the easterlings that Lorgan set a price upon his head. But when Tuor had lived thus in solitude as an outlaw for 4 years, Ulmo set it in his heart to depart from the land of his fathers, for he had chosen Tuor as the instrument of his desires. And, leaving once more the caves of Androth, he went westwards across Dor-Lormin and found Anon in Geleith. Geleith or Goliath? And found Anon in Goliath. It's got a Y in it, I'll just go with that. The gate of the Noldor. And all the Elvish people were probably like, Tanya, that's not how you pronounce Goliath, 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 Glath, Gluth. Could be a Gluth. Gluth. No, because U is the U-I. Anyway. The gate of the Noldor, which the people of I hear laughter in the spheres. That's nice. You can laugh at me. I'm doing my best. Which the people of Turgon built when they dwelt in Novrast long years before. Thence a dark tunnel led beneath the mountains and issued into Cirith Niniach, the rainbow cleft, through which a turbulent water ran towards the western sea. Kumi, you gotta go in your own cage now, mate. The sun's almost going down. It's nearly birdie num bedtime. Yes? Back to your cage you go. Good boy. Come on. Come on, Kumi. I actually was a little bit worried because I left them out free ranging while I went out with them today. I mean, the door was shut. But I worried that they'd chew up my books or chew up the wooden furniture, which I can't see any damage to anything, so they didn't. Or that they might try to kill each other while I was gone, not supervising them. But they were very good little birdies. I came here, they were just sitting here quiet as little miceys. Happy that I was home though, like Kumi when he heard the key in the door and me scuffling to get in the front door because Lynn gives me newspapers for their cages. So I was carrying those bags and the new acquisitions. So when they heard the scuffling at the door, which was me trying to get in, carrying all the bags, they were tweet, 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 really excited that I was home. It's nice to be wanted, isn't it? It's nice to be missed too. But anyway, it was only one day. And issued into Cirith Niniach, the rainbow cleft, through which a turbulent water ran towards the western sea. Thus it was that Tuor's flight from Hithlum was marked by neither man nor orc, and no knowledge of it came to the ears of Morgoth. And Tuor came into Nevrast, and looking upon Belager, the great sea, he was enamoured of it, and the sound of it and the longing for it were ever in his heart and ear, and an unquiet was on him that took him at last into the depths of the realms of Ulmo. Then he dwelt in Nevrast alone, and the summer of that year passed, and the doom of Nargothrond drew near. But when the autumn came, he saw 7 great swans flying south, and he knew them for a sign that he had tarried over long, and he followed their flight along the shores of the sea. Thus he came at length to the deserted halls of Vinyamar beneath Mount Taurus, and he entered in, and found there the shield and hauberk, and the sword and helm, that Turgon had left there by the command of Ulmo long before. And he arrayed himself in those arms and went down to the shore. But there came a great storm out of the west, and out of that storm Ulmo, the Lord of Waters, arose in majesty, and spoke to Tuor as he stood beside the sea. And Ulmo bade him depart from that place and seek out the hidden kingdom of Gondolin. And he gave Tuor a great cloak to mantle him in shadow from the eyes of his enemies. The god of the sea giving him a cloak. But in the morning, when the storm was past, Tuor came upon an elf standing beside the walls of Vinyamar, and he was Voronwy, son of Aranwy of Gondolin, who sailed in the last ship that Turgon sent into the west. But when that ship, returning at last out of the deep ocean, foundered in the great storm within sight of the coasts of Middle-earth, Ulmo took him up, alone of all its mariners, and cast him onto the land near Vinyamar. And learning of the command laid upon Tuor by the Lord of Waters, Voronwy was filled with wonder and did not refuse him his guidance to the hidden door of Gondolin. Therefore they set out together from that place. And as the fell winter of that year came down upon them out of the north, they went warily eastward under the eaves of the mountains of shadow. Yes, my babies, my beautiful baby boys. At length they came in their journeying to the pools of Ivrin, and looking with grief on the defilement wrought there by the passage of Glaurung the dragon. But even as they gazed upon it, they saw one going northward in haste, and he was a tall man, capital N, of the species of man, as opposed to elf or dwarfs, you understand. Clad in black and bearing a black sword. But they knew not who he was, nor anything of what had befallen in the south. And he passed them by, and they said no word. And at the last, by the power that Ulmo set upon them, they came to the hidden door of Gondolin, and passing down the tunnel, they reached the inner gate, and were taken by the guard as prisoners. That'd be right, wouldn't it? All that bother. Then they were led up the mighty ravine of Orthach Echor, barred by 7 gates, and brought before Ecthelion of the fountain, the warden of the great gate at the end of the climbing road. And there Tuor cast aside his cloak, and from the arms that he bore from Vinyamar it was seen that he was in truth one sent by Ulmo. Then Tuor looked down upon the fair vale of Tumladen, set as a green jewel amid the encircling hills. And he saw far off upon the rocky height of Amon Gwareth Gondolin the great city of 7 names, whose fame and glory is mightiest in song of all dwellings of the elves in the hitherlands. At the bidding of Ecthelion, trumpets were blown on the towers of the great gate, and they echoed in the hills. And far off, but clear, there came a sound of answering trumpets, blown upon the white walls of the city, flushed with the rose of dawn upon the plain. Thus it was that the son of Huor rode across Tongladen and came to the gate of Gondolin, and passing up the wide stairways of the city, he was brought at last to the tower of the king, and looked upon the images of the trees of Valinor. Then Tuor stood before Thorgon, son of Fingolfin, high king of the Noldor, and upon the king's right hand there stood Maeghlin, his sister's son, but upon his left hand sat Idril, Celebrimbor, his daughter. And all that heard the voice of Tuor marvelled, doubting that this were in truth a man of mortal race, for his words were the words of the Lord of Waters that came to him in that hour. Channeling people there. Channeling. It happens from time to time, in times of great need, spontaneously. It can be a bit awkward if you don't know what's happening in that moment, but I'm fairly sure he was prepared ahead of time. And he gave warning to Turgon that the curse of Mandos now hastened to its fulfilment, when all the works of the Noldor should perish, and he bade him depart and abandon the fair and mighty city that he had built, and go down Sirion, meaning the river Sirion, to the sea. Then Turgon pondered long the counsel of Ulmo, and there came into his mind the words that were spoken to him in Vinyamar. Love not too well the work of thy hands and the devices of thy heart, and remember that the true hope of the Noldor lieth in the west, and cometh from the sea. But Turgon was become proud, and Gondolin as beautiful as a memory of elven Tirion, and he trusted still in its secret and impregnable strength, though even a Valar should gainsay it. One should always listen to the Valar, the gods, people of Earth. Just saying. And after the Nanaeth Anidiat, the people of that city desired never again to mingle in the woes of elves and men without, nor to return through dread and danger into the west. shut behind their pathless and enchanted hills. They suffered none to enter. Although he fled from Morgoth, hate pursued, and tidings of the lands beyond came to them, faint and far, and they heeded them little. The spies of Angband sought for them in vain, and their dwelling was as a rumour, and a secret that none could find. My Glen spoke ever against Tuor in the councils of the king, and his words seemed the more weighty in that they went with Turgon's heart. But at the last, he rejected the bidding of Ulmo and refused his counsel, the god of the sea. But in the warning of the Valar, he heard again the words that were spoken before the departing Noldor on the coast of Araman long ago, and the fear of treason was wakened in Turgon's heart. Therefore, in that time, the very entrance to the hidden door in the encircling mountains was caused to be blocked up, and thereafter none went ever forth from Gondolin on any errand of peace or war while that city stood. Tidings were brought by Thorondor, Lord of Eagles, of the fall of Nargothrond, and after of the slaying of Thungol, and of Dior, his heir, and of the ruin of Doriath. But Turgon shut his ear to word of the woes without, and vowed to march never at the side of any son of Fëanor, and his people he forbade ever to pass the leaguer of the hills. And Tuor remained in Gondolin for its bliss and its beauty, and the wisdom of its people held him enthralled. And he became mighty in stature and in mind, and learned deeply of the lore of the exiled elves. Then the heart of Idril was turned to him, and his to her, and Myglene's secret hatred grew ever greater, for he desired above all things to possess her, the only heir of the king of Gondolin. But so high did Tuor stand in the favour of the king, that when he had dwelt there for 7 years, Turgon did not refuse him even the hand of his daughter. For though he would not heed the bidding of Ulmo, he perceived that the fate of the Noldor was wound with the one whom Ulmo had sent, and he did not forget the words that Tuor spoke to him before the host of Gondolin departed from the battle of unnumbered tears. Then there was made a great and joyful feast, for Tuor had won the hearts of all that people, save only of Myglen and his secret following. And thus there came to pass the second union of elves and men. The second union, by the gods. The first one didn't work out so well, did it? By the gods. Now, you're getting very fractious. Okay, you need to go in your own cage. Do I have to carry you out manually by my own bare hands? Not with my own bare hands, it'd bite me to death. With my special cleaning mitts I used to catch you with? Can't you just go to bed in your own cage on your own, by your own free will, Kermit? Had a lovely day playing with Bo. They're kind of friends now. They are. It's good that I can leave them alone and let them have the cage doors open and flutter about and play. It's very good progress, boys. Today's been very good progress. I'm very pleased with you both. You're good little birdie boys. Now that you're friends with each other, you might tame down and be a friend to Mama too. Oh well, let's not get too excited. Baby steps. Baby steps, boys. Baby steps. Yes. There's lots of agitation going on. What's going on, boys? Come on. Yes, it's time you went to bed. Birdie Num Num bedtime. Excuse me, it's Birdie Num Num bedtime. The sun's nearly gone down. Not yet, but soon. Right, where were we? Yes, and thus there came to pass the second union of elves and men. In the spring of the year after was born in Gondolin Earendil, got there in the end, maybe. Half elven, the son of Tuor and Idril Celebrindal, and that was 500 years and 3 since the coming of the Noldor to Middle-earth. Of surpassing beauty was Earendil, for a light was in his face as the light of heaven. And he had the beauty and the wisdom of the Eldar, and the strength and hardihood of the men of old. And the sea spoke ever in his ear and heart, even as with Tuor, his father. Then the days of Gondolin were yet full of joy and peace, and none knew that the region wherein the hidden kingdom lay had been at last revealed to Morgoth by the cries of Hurin, when standing in the wilderness beyond the encircling mountains, and finding no entrance, he called on Turgon in despair. Thereafter, the thought, meaning the telepathy, the thought of Morgoth was bent unceasing on the mountainous land between Anach and the upper waters of Sirion, whither his servants had never passed, yet still no spy or creature out of Unbound could come there because of the vigilance of the eagles, and Morgoth was thwarted in the fulfillment of his designs. which no doubt Morgoth would not be happy about, because he's evil, vicious and sadistic and cruel. But Idril Celebrinder was wise and far-seeing. And her spirit misgave her, and foreboding crept upon her spirit as a cloud. You're very restless. Is there another earthquake coming, boys? Lots of restlessness. I need another drink of water or something. It's hot in here even though I've got the fan on. Good goddess. Don't know how I'm going to keep them cool when summer hits. I need to buy. Housing Commission's giving me ceiling fans, they said within 3 months, so don't really want one, but that might be a good option. Then it will be blowing air down from the ceiling, spreading around the room rather than the fans. Too noisy, tucked in the corner. Right. Where were we? Foreboding crept upon his spirit as a cloud, which was how I knew when the 2020 began. I had already been pre-prepared by the spirits, by the way, with that near death in June, and that sense of something evil seeping out. Well, I had been sensing it for about the previous decade, actually. But yes, so it's a horrible way of feeling something's hanging over you with some kind of seeping, pestilent oppression, and it's not a nice way to exist in the world, people of Earth, but sometimes it's what you're left with, that pre-warning. Therefore in that time she let prepare a secret way that should lead down from the city, and passing out beneath the surface of the plain, issue far beyond the walls, northward of Amon Gwareth. And she contrived it that the work was known but to few, and no whisper of it came to Maeglin's ears. Now, on a time when Eärendil was yet young, Maeglin was lost, for he, as has been told, loved mining and quarrying after metals above all other craft, and he was master and leader of the elves who worked in the mountains distant from the city, seeking after metals for their smithying of things, both of peace and war. But often Maeglin went with few of his folk beyond the leaguer of the hills, and the king knew not that his bidding was defied, and thus it came to pass, as fate willed, that Maeglin was taken prisoner by orcs and brought to Unbound. Maeglin was no weakling or craven, but the torment wherewith he was threatened cowed his spirit, and he purchased his life and freedom by revealing to Morgoth the very place of Gondolin, and the ways whereby it might be found and assailed, under pain of torture, people of Earth. Great indeed was the joy of Morgoth, and to Maeglin he promised the lordship of Gondolin, as his vassal. What are you doing, little boy? Are you playing with the balcony? You're very restless this evening. It's unusual, isn't it? Right. And the possession of Idril Calavrindal, when the city should be taken, and indeed desire for Idril and hatred for Tuor led Maeglin the easier to his treachery, most infamous in all the histories of the elder days. Betray your own people for elvish pussy and revenge on a M-A-N, capital M-A-N. Wow! What do you say, Kermie and Bo? Bo says, I want that green parrot out of my cage. Kermie says, I'm not going anywhere. So there's going to be anarchy and chaos in a moment. This morning before I went out, I played songs to them on Spotify. I played them Iris, and I played Yellow Bird, and I played Burning Ring of Fire. I played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which both seemed to really like that tune, that melody. What was the other thing I played? Oh, the Rainbow Connection, because Kermie's named after Kermit the Frog, which is a bit weird, but you know, what can I say? Which he quite liked that. He listened to it, took it all in. I'm going to do that more often. I really enjoyed, and I sang along to them. I really enjoyed that, you know, hearing the actual music and the different pitches and tones and the melodies. And of course my terrible singing, poor little bastards. But no, apart from that, they enjoyed the rest of it. Anyway, where were we? But Morgoth sent him back to Gondolin lest any should suspect the betrayal, and so that Maeglin should aid the assault from within when the hour came. And he abode in the halls of the king with smiling face and evil in his heart, while the darkness gathered ever deeper upon Idril. Poor Idril. That's a terrible fate, isn't it? Having someone that just wants to possess you but not really love you. Well, it happened to me, didn't it? People of it. 10.5 years of flogging a defunct marriage around like a fucking fool. But I did it for the sake of my children. I thought it was the right thing to do at the time, which was slowly killing me. At last, in the year when Eärendil was, ironically, he set people up to try to kill me anyway, so there was that. But never mind. We'll carry on. Being happy and free and wild. Now you know why I'm like this, people a bit. At last, in the year when Eärendil was 7 years old, Morgoth was ready, and he loosed upon Gondolin his bullrogs, and his orcs, and his wolves, and with them came dragons of the brood of Glaurung, and they were become now many and terrible. The host of Morgoth came over the northern hills, where the height was greatest, and the watch least vigilant. And it came at night upon a time of festival, when all the people of Gondolin were upon the walls, to await the rising sun and sing their songs at its uplifting. For the morrow was the great feast that they named the Gates of Summer. But the red light mounted the hills in the north and not in the east. And there was no stay in the advance of the foe until they were beneath the very walls of Gondolin, and the city was beleaguered without hope. Of the deeds of desperate valour there done by the chieftains of the noble houses and their warriors, and not least by Tuor, much is told of the fall of Gondolin, of the battle of Ecthelion of the Fountain, with Gothmog, Lord of Balrogs, in the very square of the king, where each slew the other, and of the defence of the tower of Turgon by the people of his household, until the tower was overthrown, and mighty was its fall, and the fall of Turgon in its ruin. Tuor sought to rescue Idril from the sack of the city, but Maegleen had laid hands on her and on Earendil. And Tuor fought with Maegleen on the walls and cast him far out, and his body as it fell smote the rocky slopes of Amon-Glareth thrice ere it pitched into the flames below. And then Tuor and Idril led such remnants of the people of Gondolin as they could gather in the confusion of the burning down the secret way which Idril had prepared. And of that passage the captains of Unbund knew nothing, and thought not that any fugitives would take a path towards the north in the highest parts of the mountains, and the nighest to Unbund. The fume of the burning and the steam of the fair fountains of Gondolin, withering in the flame of the dragons of the north, fell upon the vale of Tumladen in mournful mists, and thus was the escape of Tuor and his company aided, for there was still a long and open road to follow from the tunnel's mouth to the foothills of the mountains. And nonetheless, they came thither, and beyond hope they climbed, in woe and misery, for the high places were cold and terrible, and they had among them many that were wounded, and women and children. There was a dreadful pass, Cirith Thoranath it was named, the Eagle's Cleft, where beneath the shadow of the highest peaks a narrow path wound its way. On the right hand it was walled by a precipice, and on the left a dreadful fall leapt into emptiness. Along that narrow way their march was strung, when they were ambushed by orcs, for Morgoth had set watchers all about the encircling hills, and a Balrog was with them. Then dreadful was their plight, and hardly would they have been saved by the valour of yellow-haired Glorfindel, chief of the house of the Golden Flower of Gondolin, had not Thorondor come timely to their aid. Many are the songs that have been sung of the jewel of Glorfindel, with the Balrog upon a pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. But the eagles coming stooped upon the orcs and drove them shrieking back, and all were slain or cast into the deeps, so that rumour of the escape from Gondolin came not until long after to Morgoth's ears. Then Thorondor bore up Glorfindel's body out of the abyss, and they buried him in a mound of stones beside the pass, and a green turf came there, and yellow flowers bloomed upon it amid the barrenness of stone, until the world was changed. It's a very pretty peachy apricot coloured sunset tonight here in Brisbane at 6:10 p.m. Very pretty indeed. Thus led by Tuor, son of Huor, the remnant of Gondolin passed over the mountains and came down into the vale of Sirion, and fleeing southward by weary and dangerous marches, they came at length to Nan Tathren, the land of willows. Where's Kermie? Tucked in the corner. I'm just going to have to catch him and put him in his own cage just a moment. I'll just finish off this paragraph and then we'll do that. Oh, we've nearly finished the story. Alright, we'll carry on. They came at length to Nan Tathren, the land of willows, for the power of Ulmo yet ran in the great river, and it was about them. There they rested a while and were healed of their hurts and weariness, but their sorrow could not be healed. And they made a feast in memory of Gondolin and of the elves that had perished there, the maidens and the wives and the warriors of the king, and for Glorfindel the beloved. Many were the songs they sang under the willows of Nan Tathren in the waning of the year. There Tuor made a song for Eärendil his son, concerning the coming of Ulmo the Lord of Waters to the shores of Navrast aforetime. And the sea longing woke in his heart and in his sons also. Kermie, you need to go in your own cage, mate. Come on. Therefore, Idril and Tuor departed from Nantathren and went southwards down the river to the sea, and they dwelt there by the mouths of Sirion and joined their people to the company of Elwing Dior's daughter, that had fled thither but a little while before. And when the tidings came to Balar of the fall of Gondolin and the death of Turgon, Ereinion Gil-galad, son of Fingon, was named High King of the Noldor in Middle-earth. But Morgoth thought that his triumph was fulfilled, recking little of the sons of Fëanor, and of their oath, which had harmed him never, and turned always to his mightiest aid, and in his black thought he laughed, regretting not the one Silmaril that he had lost, for by it, as he deemed, the last shred of the people of the Eldar should vanish from Middle-earth and trouble it no more. If he knew of the dwelling by the waters of Sirion, he gave no sign, biding his time and waiting upon the working of oath and lie. Yet by Sirion and the sea there grew up an elven folk, the gleanings of Doriath and Gondolin, and from Valar the mariners of Círdan came among them, and they took to the waves and the building of ships, dwelling ever nigh to the coasts of Avernien, under the shadow of Ulmo's hand. And it is said that in that time Ulmo came to Valinor out of the deep waters, and spoke there to the Valar of the need of the elves, and he called on them to forgive them and rescue them from the overmastering might of Morgoth, and win back the Silmarils, wherein alone now bloomed the light of the days of bliss, when the two trees still shone in Valinor. But Manwë moved not, and of the counsels of his heart what tale shall tell? The wise have said that the hour was not yet come, and that only one speaking in person for the cause of both elves and men, pleading for pardon on their misdeeds and pity on their woes, might move the councils of the powers, and the oath of Fëanor perhaps even Manwë could not loose, until it found its end, and the sons of Fëanor relinquished the Silmarils upon which they had laid their ruthless claim. For the light which lit the Silmarils, the Valar themselves had made. In those days, Tuor felt old age creep upon him, and ever a longing for the deeps of the sea grew stronger in his heart. Therefore, he built a great ship, and he named it Ea Rami, which is Sea Wing. And with Idrel Celebrimbor he set sail into the sunset and the west, and came no more into any tale or song. But in after days it was sung that Tuor alone of mortal men was numbered among the elder race, and was joined with the Noldor whom he loved, and his fate is sundered from the fate of men. Right, I was thinking about continuing, but I'll save chapter 24 for tomorrow, people of Earth. We're really enjoying the story where we're, what's the word? Digesting it like a most delectable feast. We meaning me, myself, and I, my inner child, and my magical fairy queen, daughter of the gods self. Not that I'm a fairy queen, but you know what I mean. Daughter of the gods, guardian of sacred space, Titania's realm here in Holland Park, and my shamanic witchy self. I'm enjoying this wonderful, wonderful story of the elves, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am, and I shall be back no doubt tomorrow with chapter 24. So, good evening, bright blessings sent out to you from sacred space, Titania's realm. Bye for now, people of Earth.